Welcome to the Writer Dojo with your hosts, Steve Diamond and Larry Correia.
All right, well, welcome to the Writer Dojo. I'm your host, Steve Diamond, with my good friend here, my co-host, Larry Correia. And today we have a very, very special guest, a guest that we've talked about a lot on the show. And that is the Critical Drinker, or Will Jordan, as you can call him. Man, it is so good to have you on this show. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Oh, you're making me nervous now that you told me you've been talking about me for a long time.
All good things.
What has been said?
Yeah.
No, it's a pleasure to be here, man. Thank you.
We've enjoyed. We've followed your work for a long time, and honestly, your reviews have kind of I feel like have changed the industry and brought a lot of attention to a lot of things that need attention brought to. And I think you've helped a lot of storytellers, and for that you are much appreciated amongst our crowd.
No, honestly, man, I'm just a drunk guy with a microphone. But honestly, like if it's found an audience, and if perhaps in some way it's made a positive difference to the industry, whether it's writing, whether it's the movie industry, man, I consider my mission accomplished. So yeah, it's great to have been able to do something like that and have people respond to it the way they have.
Yeah, and for those of you just joining us, the Writer Dojo is, I'm Larry Correia. I'm a best-selling novelist. I've been doing this for a long time. Steve Diamond is a horror novelist, and we started this 3 years ago just to help writers and aspiring writers. It's mostly focused on business and craft. We've got about 150 episodes, so if you're just joining us for the first time because of our guest, go back and check that out. If you're trying to become a writer or you want to see how the sausage is made, check those out. We're on Spotify primarily, but pretty much everywhere there's podcasts.
So I am curious with all of I think most people are accustomed to seeing the biting sarcasm and the wonderful critiques of things, of those movies and those shows that pretend to be things like Star Wars that aren't anymore. Yeah. And but I am curious though, at what point did you sit down and say, you know what, F this, I'm going to write. I want to write novels.
So it was a gradual process for me, I suppose. It was, way back in the 2000s when I was still like a teenager, I started getting into creative writing, like because this shiny new thing called the internet came along, and it opened up creative writing forums where you could post stories. It was just like a really primitive like message board format, but it allowed you to get your work out there and have people take a look at it. And for me, it was like some crazy drug, that people were reading my work and enjoying it in a lot of cases. And I kind of cut my teeth as a writer there, just doing short stories, just like really just exercises in experimentation. But they gradually got longer and longer as I got more invested in it, and got to the point where maybe around 2009, I think, where I realized, like, damn, like the stuff I'm doing now is almost as long as a book. Maybe I should just try and actually write a book. And up until this point, authors just seemed like these otherworldly beings. They had these crazy space brains that just existed on a completely different plane of thought from mere mortals like myself. And I never thought that I could do anything like that. But the more I looked back on my own work, the more I thought, well, maybe I could give it a try. And so started work on it, submitted my first manuscript, and fortunately, it was good enough to get me an agent. And that was the beginning of the process. My very first manuscript that we submitted, it got close in a few cases. I'm sure you guys have experienced this yourselves, where you get these letters from, publishers saying, oh, we really loved it, but we've just signed up someone just like that, a month or so ago. Or it's great, but it's just not quite the right fit for our publishing house or whatever. But it's I took my lessons that I learned from that, came back with a second novel, sort of refined a lot of my ideas down, and that was what got published. That became Redemption, which was the first book in the Ryan Drake series, and that really started the whole thing for me. But I think ultimately the tough part is getting an agent. more than anything. That's just getting that initial ball rolling, because agents these days are not easy to come by. They get a lot of submissions every week, and so to stand out now is a tough prospect for any author.
We've had episodes about getting an agent, the pros and cons of agents, and querying them. And it's a pain in the butt, and especially now the industry has changed so much, especially with agents, that for a while there was super, super political too. And so it sounds like you might have squeaked in under the wire.
I think I got in before it all, went down the tubes like that, because I got my agent about 2010, I believe.
Yeah, before it went really nuts.
Yeah, and so perhaps it's slightly different in the UK as well compared to the American publishing industry. So there is that too. But yeah, I mean, I can honestly say I've been quite lucky in that I've never felt like I was under political pressure to edit things a certain way or put certain characters in or include certain demographics or anything like that. I've been quite lucky. I've had a lot of creative freedom with the work that I did.
Oh, that's cool.
So why did you choose thrillers? When
I love them.
You just love them? Is that it?
I mean, ultimately, you write I guess you write in the genre that you find most appealing, and so my favorite memories, I suppose, of reading are like being on vacation and just picking up a thriller at the airport and just reading it by the pool or whatever, and just getting completely absorbed in it. And, just that kind of entertainment, bit of action, a bit of intrigue, some interesting characters, maybe some exotic locations, like all that stuff just fires my imagination. And it gives me a tremendous freedom creatively as a writer, because there's almost this expectation, particularly if you're a Scottish author, that you should do some crime drama set on the mean streets of Glasgow or something. Like everyone's fucking obsessed with Scottish crime. And I just thought, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to write about these boring, rainy places that I live every day. I want to go other places.
Well, I'm an expert on Scotland because I've watched Dog Soldiers 10 times.
Right. Well, there you go. That's
right.
Yeah.
Right, that's it. That's my knowledge.
The werewolves are like the women over here, only better looking, But no, I just I thought I'd rather get away from that and do something a bit broader and perhaps a bit more exotic, and just it allows me to work in all kinds of things that I find interesting. A little bit of history, obviously the military aspect of it, the technology, all that sort of thing. These are all things that I find personally interesting in stories, movies, that sort of thing. So, I was very happy to work in that genre. I certainly wouldn't rule out working in other genres, whether it be, fantasy, sci-fi, that sort of thing. I just, haven't quite found the right thing that I want to pursue yet with those.
I've done one thriller series. It is a hoot. It's a fun genre to play in. Plus, I'm a huge gun nut, and it's an opportunity to write a lot of action scenes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I grew up watching 80s action flicks, so man, I love guns as much as the next guy. So if I can work them into the story, all to the good.
Heck yeah, man.
Plus, it gives us good excuses for tax write-offs for our more expensive purchases.
Oh, yeah. Actually, me and Steve we put together a thing where once a year I have firearms instructors, like high-end firearms instructors, come out to my house, and I have writer range day. So
that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it actually is. If you ever want to come, just let me know. You're more than welcome.
I'll supply the whiskey, you supply the guns, and we'll have a great time between us. But
we just do the whiskey after the guns, though. Otherwise,
probably.
Yeah.
See, for me, I had to go to Eastern Europe. I had to go to the Czech Republic if I wanted to shoot guns, or rifle ranges out in the States, because you can't really do it in the UK. And so I had to travel a little bit more. Had I known back then, I would have done it as a tax write-off and it's a business expense. I just never thought about it like that back then. I wasn't smart yet.
We're both, before we were writers, both of us, me and Steve, were both finance guys. We were both accountants. And
okay. Yeah. Very useful. Very useful.
Very useful indeed.
I am curious, though, when you started doing the writing, so I used to do a lot of book reviews. I had my own book review site and everything. And I found, and I want to know if you found some of the same difficulties that I did in this. And that is whenever I started writing, I couldn't turn off my own like critical brain from other stuff that I'd read or other stuff that I'd watched, and I was being overcritical of my own writing. Did you ever find any of that?
Um, in different ways, I think, because I always make a point of when I'm writing a book, I'll never read anything. I don't want, like, unless it's for reference material or whatever, but I won't read any other author's works. And I've always stuck by that because I don't want any other person's style or turn of phrase or anything to start like impinging on what I'm doing. I don't want to be influenced by what other people are doing. So I'm able to kind of empty my mind of that kind of thing and just like work in a vacuum almost. And I love that. Like, particularly when I'm writing, I generally don't have music. I don't have distractions in the background. I just need myself in a room, peace and quiet, so I can just get absorbed in the story that I'm trying to tell. But certainly, like in terms of like analyzing my own work, yeah, sure. I mean, I think every author should be reflective of what they've written, and at the very least, give it a couple of passes editorially before you submit it, because you want to make sure it's the best it can be. And sometimes it isn't. Like you'll get through a certain scene, and you might be struggling a little bit. It's not quite writer's block, but it's the writing is coming very slowly, and you're really having to force it out. And usually that is a result of you're trying to make something happen that shouldn't be happening story-wise. I generally find anyway. I'm trying to make characters do things that are out of character in service of the plot, or I'm trying to make like a clunky series of events happen. And all it usually requires is a bit of distance for me. Go away, have a walk or something, whatever it might do to distract you. Think about what you've done. And then you'll usually arrive at the understanding of what the problem is, and then you can come back at it fresh. And I know when I'm on the right track because I can write as quickly as I can hammer out the words on the keyboard. It's you get into that great flow of writing, and that's when I know I'm doing something good and it's on the right track.
Yeah,
And it's
I
a great
love that,
feeling.
man. When you get in the zone and you have those days where you just crank out the words and they're perfect,
Yeah,
it's the most beautiful thing in the world to a writer.
yeah.
That part you were talking
Love
about earlier, though, like your subconscious will throw the brakes on. Like if you're
Yeah.
screwing something up, you're creating a plot hole, you're doing a character wrong, whatever it is, your brain, even if you don't consciously know it, your brain will say, this ain't right.
Yes.
And you just can't get into that flow state because it's broken.
Yes,
And
exactly.
it's weird though too. I think we kind of train ourselves as we do this over time on how to get in and out of that. Did you find, is this something, did this come to you naturally from the beginning, or is this something you picked up with practice?
The flow state, I think it tends to happen naturally. Like the process of writing obviously is something that you get disciplined at because you have to make the time to do it. And there could be times when you're tired or you've had a busy day or whatnot, and it'd be very easy to say, well, I can't be bothered today, I'm going to do something else. But like that's when you lose time and you lose the flow of the story. You lose the momentum. And that for me is something that I'm always conscious of when I'm writing a book, is that I have to keep it going. Because if I was to take a few days off, those few days can easily turn into a week, which turns into a month, and then the book never gets done. And so I have to keep the momentum going somehow. And that usually just means being disciplined and kind of forcing myself to make the time to write. The result is sometimes, certain nights are easier than others when you're working away, or certain days. But if you're on the right track, you're motivated and you've got a bit of energy, you will get into that flow state generally. And that's when you get your best work done.
Yeah, I find I need about 4 hours. I need like about a 4 hour, at least a 4 hour block. If it's less than that, it's not. It just doesn't hit.
I think probably it's more about, it's maybe 3 for me is my optimum. Like after 3 hours, I start to like the energy starts to wane a little bit, and maybe I need a break. I don't necessarily stop for the day, but like it definitely helps to take a little break for 20-30 minutes, go do something else, and then come back at it fresh a little bit. Partly as a result of when I used to write, because certainly in the early days of my writing career, I would be writing after work. Like I would do a day job, I'd come home, have dinner, do stuff with the family and stuff, and then make the time to write. And so it would be 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night before I even started. And that's not necessarily the best time of the day in terms of your creative energy, but that's when I had available, and then I just had to make it work. And so I could be going till midnight quite easily a lot of nights.
We've talked about that on the show many times, because we have a lot of guys who are just starting out, a lot of aspiring writers, and I had a rule of thumb that anything I wrote after 1 o'clock in the morning was going to be crap, and I would stay up late. So I was thinking I was doing great, and then the next day I'd look at it and I was like, "What the hell was I thinking? This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen." And I used to do that all the time before I quit my day job. But yeah, I mean, it's hard.
It is, yeah, and like this ultimately, this is these are the sacrifices you have to make when you're starting out as a writer, and if you want to succeed in that business, because you don't just decide to become a writer and everything in life just gets put on hold, and you can just sit on some tropical beach for 6 months, like writing your book in like beautiful conditions. Like, it doesn't work like that. You have to fit it around the rest of your life, because the rest of your life puts demands on you. And you do that through a combination of being disciplined and being motivated. And if you're not motivated on a particular day, well, you find a way to make yourself motivated. And there's plenty of nights when I would much rather have been watching TV, or being out with my friends, or just fucking sleeping. But you don't always get to do that. And so you make that sacrifice to get the book done. And, eventually, hopefully you reap the rewards of it. And I was just lucky that I got to. Yeah,
I always says is you got to kind of treat it like a job. It's got to have a schedule. And we talked about writer's block on the show a lot too, because like Steve and I both being former accountants, we couldn't have accountant's block. We just get fired.
I just don't want to do numbers today.
Yeah, I'm not feeling it. I want to go play Xbox. Yeah, I know. Good luck with that, dude. You're fired.
So yeah, I mean, for me, like, writer's block was a rare thing, and I don't think I ever experienced it properly. It was more just what I described to you earlier, where I might be struggling with a particular scene in the story, and it just wasn't quite coming together for me. And it was usually because my subconscious was trying to tell me, like, you're doing something wrong here. It's just not right. The building blocks aren't in the correct order, and you need to rework this. And that's usually enough to get me through it. And I avoided it, I think, partly because I would plan the story in advance. I'd write down the synopsis of the story. And so I would have the building blocks there. I'd have my roadmap, and it was just a case of following it.
You're an outliner then?
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the 100%. Things we always ask writers when we bring on guests, is because I'm an outliner and Steve's a discovery writer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is a battle that we've had for the last 3 years on the air.
Yeah. I mean, each to their own. Like, everyone's brain works in a slightly different way. And I just know myself that I like, in the early stages of the story, to experiment and try out different combinations of characters, events, that sort of thing. And I do that best by just making that bare bones, high level roadmap of the story, gradually fleshing it out, figuring out the things that work and don't work. And then ideally, I know the story already. It already exists in my mind, and then it's just a case of making it real by writing it. And so that works well for me. I can appreciate it doesn't work well for everyone, but that's just how I like to do things, because there's nothing worse for me than getting halfway through a story, or even, almost at the end, and then having a complete change of heart and realizing, like, oh shit, I've had a much better idea. I wish I'd done it this way. And then you got to go back and rewrite half your book. That is horrible. I hate having to do that. So yeah, if I can avoid that, then great.
Writing's fun, editing's work.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I don't love editing.
I think we're on the same page on that one. We do need to take a break real fast just for a commercial, and so for us that's just going to be like 10 seconds, but for you guys this will be like a couple minutes.
Well, enjoy the commercial.
Whee!
In Heart of the Mountain, the final battle for the future of Locke is now, in the explosive conclusion to Larry Correia's Saga of the Forgotten Warrior series. I shot with awe. The warrior who has fought through unimaginable trials now faces his greatest challenge yet. With the fate of his people hanging in the balance, Ashok must confront an ancient evil, the darkness within himself, and the truths that have been buried for centuries. The mountain looms, and the final fight for survival begins. Blood will be spilled, alliances will shatter, and destinies will be decided. Will Ashok rise as the human his world needs, Or will the weight of his past destroy everything he has fought for? The saga is over. The final chapter is here. In the heart of the mountain, the final battle awaits. Don't miss the thrilling conclusion to the saga of the Forgotten Warrior, available now. Pick up your copy today.
I know what you're thinking. What is Steve doing here in the middle of the commercial break? Trust me, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't important. And what is important? Well, how about the new revised edition of my first novel, Residue? So what all did I revise? Well, I'm obviously not the title, because it's still called Residue. I'm not stupid. But I did revise the entire novel to add new content. We're talking more guns, monsters, and mad science. So if you've been waiting for the chance to read about Jack Bishop, a guy who can see the psychic residue left behind by monsters and murder victims, now is your chance. Residue. Available in print, ebook, and audio on Amazon.com. All right, back to your regularly scheduled ads or whatever it is you do during the time Larry and I aren't talking. See ya.
Need an escape? Looking for the kind of stories that let you dream bigger, think deeper, and imagine a future worth fighting for? With a Baen book in hand, you're guaranteed an adventure. Dive into worlds where heroes defy the odds, legends are born, and every challenge is an opportunity for greatness. From best-selling authors like David Weber, John Ringo, and Larry Correia to the voices of tomorrow, Baen brings you stories that ignite the imagination and keep you turning pages long into the night. From epic space battles to thrilling fantasies, Baen books offer more than just escape. They give you heroes who inspire, worlds that challenge, and futures that spark hope. These aren't just stories, they're an invitation to look beyond the horizon, to explore new worlds, face down impossible odds, and discover the strength to shape your own future. For over 40 years, Baen Books has delivered on the promise of adventure, the kind of adventures you've been waiting for. So, what's your next journey?
All right, everybody. Well, welcome back. Glad to have you all back with us today. And again, Wills, it's great to have you on the show with us. We really appreciate your time, man. And so far, it's been awesome chatting with you.
No, thank you. I mean, like, what I do so often is, I spend all my time on YouTube talking about movies and media and stuff, and that's all great fun. But it's quite rare that I get to sit down with fellow authors and actually talk about the business of writing. And so it's a nice little change of pace for me. So thank you.
Well,
yeah, I mean, we love
real
movies
quick,
and we use them a lot on the show. It's because we're lazy, and it takes less time for us to watch a movie and talk about story than it does for us to read a book.
Yeah, that's true.
But
well,
it's nice to talk to writers.
And so many people are it's real easy to make visual references, right?
Yes.
And so, like for example, Larry and I co-wrote a novel together. And so when we were doing that, we said, okay, just kind of sort of what does this character look like in terms of an actor? Oh, well, it's Russian Bruce Willis or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like it just makes for really quick images for us as writers to glom onto, but also for readers to envision, right? Now, I do want to get into, let's talk about at the break, we were kind of chatting about the business of things, traditional and self-publishing and stuff like that. And you were talking about how over in the UK, it's very similar to how it is here in the US in terms of, to make it in this business, to go back to what you referenced earlier, the what's the word I'm looking for? The tenacity, I guess, and the motivation that we have to be authors, because so few of them actually make money. And it's the same over there as here.
It is, unfortunately, yeah. And, the sad reality is that you're going to get that top, 0.1% of authors who are like the J.K. Rowlings and the Stephen Kings of the world who become multimillionaires, which is great. But then you've got this vast ocean of people beneath them who a lot of the time don't even make minimum wage from it. I think even for most professional authors in the UK, that maybe have an agent and are signed up with a publishing house and put out a book every year or two, even for them, they'd be lucky if they make 10 grand a year. You can't live off that. And so for most of them, they're not able to do it full time. It becomes just a sideline for them. And that's the unfortunate economics of the business of writing. It's not a hugely profitable business anymore. Partly, I guess, because increased competition, like self-publishing and so on, and partly just because, publishing houses, they take on more authors now. They put out more content. And I certainly noticed this even in my writing career. It used to be that you would write a book at least a year and a half before it actually got published. Now it's down to a matter of months. Like, it's super quick. The turnaround is crazy because they just want to get the next one out and the next one out and just keep pumping out that content. And in a lot of ways, it's like any other industry. Whether it be music, acting, YouTube, even. For every person who's like a megastar and makes millions of dollars a year, there's thousands of other people who never even get close to that. It's just with writing, wow, you have to put the time in. You really, it takes, as I'm sure you guys know, writing even just a single novel is the better part of a year, at least, to get it from start to finish. That is a big investment of your time. And it's easy to question sometimes, is that worth my time?
Yeah, it's an interesting business, and we have so many guys that we know that are so talented. They're so good. I mean, they're brilliant storytellers. They got great prose. They great characters, great scenes, and their career never goes anywhere.
Yeah.
And then you got people who are complete bums, and they suck, but they'll blow up huge and make piles of money. And I don't know, it's such a weird business. It really is.
It's the luck of the draw. And like we've all been there. Like, take music, for example. How many times have you been to a gig and you've heard some amazing band up on stage, right? And like, you think they're brilliant, like they've got great songs, their
How are they
harmonies
not
amazing.
selling out stadiums? I mean, how are these guys not huge?
But instead they'll just be playing like in bars and stuff, and that's as far as they go because they didn't get discovered, they didn't catch that lucky break, and it's the unfortunate nature of any talent industry. Some people make it, some people don't, and it's not always fair. I wish it was. I wish people got discovered and rewarded a bit more on merit, but
I tried to make that happen once for a bunch of writers, and it caused a bit of a kerfuffle in America, in the publishing world.
Right. I mean,
we won't get into that. That. That's one of the things we try to do on the show is we try to get people on the business side of things so that we can get them to where they can make a living at it, quit their day jobs. That's kind of like the big grandiose goal for most of our followers. Just get them to that hump.
Yes.
And it takes years. It usually takes several years of a lot of effort and putting in a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice and a lot of rejection. And it is pretty brutal. And even those of us I've been doing this as my full-time job for about 10 years now. And even for us, we have to constantly kind of keep evolving and changing and doing experiments because the market keeps changing too. Technology keeps changing. Like Kindle Unlimited is the thing that didn't even exist. Kindle didn't exist when I started. And so it's been a learning process the entire time. And if you get stagnant, you die. You just get run over.
I mean, I think ebooks, certainly over here, the margins on them are great. So like, you might make a few cents on every paperback that gets sold because like the printing costs and warehousing costs and all that stuff. With Kindle, it's like, well, there's nothing really. You got one file and that's it. People can download it as many times as they want. And so you do, as an author, at least get a better profit out of that. But, ultimately everyone wants to have that physical copy in their hands and say, like, hey, I see this, I wrote this,
The downside of the Kindle is like, because it's so easy, you're competing with 600,000 other people this month. Who released
for sure.
Like, I don't even actually know what the number is. Actually, like about 100. It's about 100 grand a month now, isn't it, Steve?
I think so.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, think about that. It's a lot of books.
That is And 90% of them will be just unreadable garbage because like when it's self-published Kindle, there's no quality control there. It's just like whatever you want to write. Like it could be complete nonsense, but it doesn't matter. It's just another piece of work that's out there. Another
It still
thing.
has to somehow get your book that's better past that, so people will see it.
Yeah,
And that's such a challenge.
this I think, yeah, this is the real power of publishing houses, because people have asked me on live streams before, like, I'm thinking about self-publishing. Do you recommend it? And I can, all I can say is, like, I've never self-published my own stuff. All I know is, like, what I've read about it, and I'm pretty sure the average self-published book sells less than 25 copies, and it's usually to friends and family and stuff.
Yeah, it's immediate family and people who feel sorry for you.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, and it doesn't even count, because, like, they have no marketing machine behind them. There's no way to publicize it. There's no way to get that out there. And so what is going to happen to it? It's just going to get swallowed up by the ether. At least when you have a publishing house that's there, they will do something to promote it, because they've made an investment in you. They've paid you in advance, usually. And so they need to try and recoup that somehow. And so you get something out of it.
It's so hit or miss now too on publishers, because we know so many guys who they'll get the traditional publishing deal, big publishing house, but the publisher won't do any marketing for them. It's like they're throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks.
Right?
It's like, oh, we bought a book off you. It wasn't a giant mega hit. We spent no money on you, but it wasn't a giant mega hit. So hit the road, Jack. It's sad.
I know. In my early days as a writer, like, their big goal is to get you into the supermarkets, right? Over here in the UK, you don't make money through bookstores and stuff, like, because not many people actually go to bookstores. Like, it's the supermarkets, because someone's in there getting their weekly grocery shopping. They'll see the book aisle. They might just happen to pick up a book and say, oh, whatever, I'll get that for my husband for his birthday or something like that. And that's how you sell the majority of your stuff over in the UK. So their big push when they sign up a new author is, we're going to try and get them into the supermarkets and get, like, however many hundreds of stores to stock it, at least for a few weeks. That's your sink or swim moment. If you sell well there, you'll get another deal, and you'll probably go on to bigger things. If not, for most authors, that's it. Their career's over then. Nobody will invest in them again, and that's them done. They either have to come up with a new pen name, or they'll just never get another book published.
That's interesting, because, like, over here, we don't really have the supermarket thing as much. We like to joke about the airport bookstore, because in American publishing, they'll have, like, their top 200 bestsellers.
Yeah.
And that's what is everywhere. And for the rest of us, we're just the scrubs who try to sneak in around the edges of that.
Right.
And it's actually been really interesting in breaking through that. And it is a massive pain in the ass. And
it is, yeah. I certainly, like, the difference I noticed was, once my YouTube channel took off, it's like, well, okay, people know who I am now, and so that becomes the thing that gets people to look up your books. And I never try and push them too hard on people, because I don't want to, like, force them or feel like they have to be guilted into buying my stuff. But I do make them aware that, like, this is a thing that I do, and that really helped the profile of me as an author, because, like, suddenly I've got a couple of million people who might be interested in things that I'm doing now.
Yeah, you actually have enough of. I mean, you have such a giant platform that if you were to go independent tomorrow, you could be fine. You could parlay that. I mean, you could totally do that and cut out your publisher if you wanted to. I mean, you're in a position. I just signed a couple books deals, and I'm doing some independent stuff with. I'm also doing stuff with a startup publisher now, because I'm in that position. Yeah. But it's a good place to be as an artist, to have that freedom. But getting there takes so much time and luck to where you can have a sufficient fan base to make that jump.
I mean, I'm under no illusions. Like, if I hadn't released certain videos at certain times and they went viral, I might still just have a few hundred subscribers on YouTube. Like, there is a certain element of the luck of the draw, and being able to then recognize when something like that has happened and capitalize on it and try and make something good out of it. So, I mean, I've been extremely lucky in that regard.
Yeah.
Well, let's we've been talking about kind of the business and stuff, but let's talk about the product that you put out. Let's talk about your books. So
Okay.
so tell us about your first book. This one that you were fortunate, you put in the work, and you were fortunate enough to have picked up.
Yeah. So the Ryan Drake series is the one that I've focused the bulk of my career on. And as we were talking about earlier, like I always enjoyed these kind of globe-trotting techno thriller books with some interesting sort of character dynamics and exotic locations and stuff. And that's what I decided I wanted to do for myself. And so there was a sort of sequence of things that I was interested in. So I started off with this idea of like, I don't just want like a character who's an assassin or he just goes in and kills people or that sort of thing. Like, what else can I do that's a bit more interesting? And I thought, well, what would happen if, say, the CIA loses one of their assets, like that one of their agents gets compromised or captured or even perhaps turns rogue and goes missing? What do you do then? You're probably going to have to get them out somehow. You're going to have to bring them back. And so I hit upon this idea, well, what if there was like a team of people whose job it was to do that? They find these assets that have gone missing or have turned rogue or something, and they are sent deep behind enemy lines to bring them home. And so that gave rise to the shepherd teams, as I called them in the books. And Drake is like the leader of one of these teams. He gets sent into a mission in Russia. He's to infiltrate a prison and break out a female prisoner. And like I like the idea of the femme fatale, like the sort of the woman who knows more than she lets on kind of idea. And so he breaks her out. But before he can do anything with her, and before he can bring her home, he's his own family are taken hostage, and he's commanded that he has to break her out and deliver up to these people that have taken his own family hostage. And so that's the mission for him. Then he has to go against his own people. He has to go on the run with this woman, and while he's doing it, I guess try to figure out who she really is, why people are willing to risk so much for her. And so that formed the backbone of the first book, and then the series gradually builds off of that. Like we get to learn more about all these different characters, the world that they're in, and I think the thing that fascinated me most was, or the thing that was most important for me was like, I don't just want guns and shooting and the mission. I wanted like the people behind it. I wanted like a bit of emotional heart to the story. And so that's what I tried to bring into it. I tried to bring in like a good character dynamics, a lot of depth to the characters and why they do what they do. And that was, I guess, the backbone of the Ryan Drake series. So that's my long-winded way of saying it. I tried to do a thriller with a bit of heart behind it.
Yeah, good characters, good plot. I mean, it sounds awesome. You're up to 9 of those now?
9 of them, yeah.
That's awesome.
So I the last one, it came out a few years ago, and then that was my intention, was to stop it there, because I didn't want it to go on forever. Like 9 books is quite a lot in a series. I didn't want to overdo it, and that was the point where my YouTube channel had really taken off as well, and so I didn't want to. I guess it was a case of focusing my attention on different things, and for a while I decided I wanted to focus my attention on content creation on YouTube. But I'm really happy that I got to finish it, because so many authors don't. And I'm glad that I got to end it the way I wanted to end it. So I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah, I mean, Larry and I talk a lot. I mean, we go to a lot of book shows and we sell books to, to people in person, conventions and stuff. And we see it all the time. We've lost sales. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of sales just in person. So you've got to think that it's even worse, within the confines of anonymity. But I mean, we've lost so many sales when we say, "Oh yeah, this is an ongoing series," or "This is the start of a series," or whatever, and they're like, "Oh well, I'll wait till it's done," because of the Martins and Rothfusses of the world, right?
Yeah.
I will tell my story. I just finished an epic fantasy series, 6 books. I started it in 9 years ago, so it's about 10 years for the whole series. And it's really good. It's called Son of the Black Sword. It's first book, Saga of the Forgotten Warrior. Great fantasy series, a lot of critical acclaim. It's done really, really well. And I dedicated the 6th and final book to George R.R. Martin, See It Ain't That Hard. And that book comes out in beginning of February, but I put up the picture of it the other day. And man, the George R.R. Martin fans went bonkers. It's actually been wonderful marketing for me.
Yeah.
But mostly I was just poking fun. I was just trolling him. I was just poking fun at that whole, I'm a brilliant artiste. I can't finish my series because I'm so brilliant. Harumph. And but honestly, it's turned off a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people, especially in fantasy, won't start a series, and so it's actually changed the market. It's so bad; it's changed the marketplace. It's forced people. It's ruined a lot of epic fantasy authors, new guys, and then it's forced them into other genres. So you got a lot of guys writing lit RPG and progression fantasy and that kind of thing instead of what they originally wanted to do. And it's all because of if you're famous enough and screw up badly enough, you can change the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, George is a fascinating case because he's a great example of what happens when you don't have that plan and you don't have the discipline to stick to it. He made his series more and more complex to the point where he created so many plot threads, he had no idea how to tie them all back together again. And he spent the past 15 years trying to figure out how to do it. And I think when you combine that with just a really poor work ethic and poor motivation, and the fact that, I think as we get older, we get less energy creatively for doing this stuff. Yeah, you can by all means like stay up until 2 a.m. writing when you're in your 20s or 30s, but like when you're in your 70s, like George is, it becomes a bit more of a stretch, and like maybe he's kind of lost it now, and I don't think he's ever going to finish Winds of Winter at this point.
No.
I think he'd be
No
quite
freaking
happy
way.
to just leave it as this great theoretical masterpiece that no one ever gets to see, because then he's not answerable for it.
Yeah, unless he gets bit by a vampire, we're not seeing the end of it.
No, and we're definitely never getting A Dream of Spring. Like, he's not going to finish that in his lifetime.
No, but it's been a fun week for me because that came out, and as you've dealt with fandoms, you can imagine what I've had a lot of people named Tyrion, Jamie, Daenerys, Uterus yelling at me for the last couple days. But good times. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to have a fandom that big and rabid. That would be really cool. I mean, I wouldn't turn down HBO money either.
Oh, I mean, for sure, yeah. I'm sure we'd all be quite happy with that. But yeah, I think it's I understand why people want to defend him, but at the same time, you have to be realistic about what he's delivered. And I think people often bring this up, like, oh, well, he doesn't owe you anything. No author owes their fan base anything. But I think actually they kind of do, particularly if that fan base has made them spectacularly successful and wealthy and all the rest of it. You have entered into a bit of a contract with those fans to deliver a satisfying story with a conclusion, ultimately, because they bought into your world.
This is something I wrote about a couple years ago, and I think it's twofold. So like, there's not an unspoken it's like there's like a real contract, but like if you can't financially afford to continue a series, that's one thing different than like promising your fans that you're going to finish the series. Like if you're stringing them on. Like if I have a series that's just dead for business reasons and I say it's dead, my fans will understand. But if I tell my fans, oh, it's going to be any day now, it's going to be next month, I've been working on it, it's so far along,
Give me some. If you give me some more money right now, I will totally read you a prologue that I promise is totally written.
Yeah, if you donate $1 million to the charity, which is basically me. Oh man, some dudes have no shame. There are some guys in this business with. Oh, on that note, did you guys see the expose about Neil Gaiman?
Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Okay. I mean, I think apparently this was known for quite a long time, and it's only like the mainstream media that's picking up on it now, which is like really tragic.
No, so we knew like in America, like I knew he was. I mean, everybody kind of knew he was like a weird, pervy guy. But this whole stuff that we try to keep the show PG-13 on the, so we won't go into it. But if you haven't heard, you can look on the internet and it's everywhere.
Yeah, I saw the Time headline where it's like "Call me master" and stuff. Like, oh man, it's always the male feminists. Like,
oh man,
every time,
dude. I read that article and I felt so unclean. I had to go tell my wife. I was like, honey. I was like, dude, look at this. I
did the same thing.
You did too?
It was wild. Oh yeah, it was wild.
I felt bad reading it, and though I mean that's when I don't feel bad because that's a guy who talked a lot of trash about me about 10 years ago. So I don't particularly feel bad for him.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, ultimately, you reap what you sow, and it seems like he's sown quite a lot of nonsense in the world. So, yeah, I
karma's
don't
a
feel
thing.
bad. Yeah, for sure. And like, this is not some guy that's being like falsely accused or anything. Like, he did this stuff by all accounts. So, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, the defense is not that it happened; it was more that it was consensual. Um, yeah, when you
there's a
got that
lot of
many
women who'd
people,
say otherwise, but
yeah, when you got a lot of women who don't know each other telling the same basic story, it's kind of. I mean, I've watched enough shows about serial killers to assume that's like a pattern.
All of them were
Yeah.
all of them were up there in Scotland.
yeah.
Were they in Scotland?
No.
Really? Oh no! I was like, I thought it was New Zealand. Never mind. I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's one of your gritty Glasgow crime shows right there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
No. If you put Neil Gaiman's like what's actually been going on, if you put that into a TV show, people will be like, no, that's too far down the rabbit hole. No one would believe that that's real.
Yeah. Truth is stranger than fiction a lot of the time.
Oh yeah,
sadly.
I know our books have to make sense.
Yeah.
You know, and real life doesn't, and it's not fair because if we put that in a book, it'd be like too weird. You know. Actually, if I depending on the author, if George Martin put that in the book, he'd win a bunch of awards.
that's true.
I need to have like 5 different TV series created about it, I'm sure. So
Yeah. Oh, I was going to ask you real fast. Well, on the note of TV, you have done. You've been doing a little experiment here recently yourself in independent filmmaking. How's that going for you?
yes. Great. I mean, it was one of those just fun little side projects that I got approached about a couple of years ago. Like an independent filmmaker got in touch and he said, like, big fan of your YouTube channel. I read your books and I really like them, and I think we could do something in terms of like doing a little bit of crowdfunding, and we can just make a short film about this. And so I thought, yeah, sure, why not? It sounds fun. And so that's what we did. We ended up getting way more than we expected. Like we thought we'll ask for maybe 20 grand. And even that seems like quite a lot of money. And then we ended up with like 300K, which allowed us to do a lot of really cool things. And so we expanded the script ideas a little bit. And I even got to watch some of it get filmed. And so to be sitting there talking with actors who are playing my characters that existed only in my head up until that point. And they're dressed like them, they're all styled like them and everything. That is absolutely surreal, but cool as. Like I loved it.
That is so cool. And that's Rogue Elements, right?
Yes, Rogue Elements. It's on my main channel page. Anyone can watch it if they want to and see what they think about it.
Yeah, check that out, guys. And that's kind of an author dream there, is to see your stuff translated into other media by other creatives.
Yeah.
And
it's really cool. And hopefully we're going to do more stuff like that. There's hopefully the potential to have this turned into an actual TV series with a real budget behind it. Conversations are happening, and I won't say any more until I know more. But
no,
we'll get...
I know those feelings, but that is awesome. I hope that works out for you. That would be super cool.
No, thank you. Appreciate that, man.
Yeah, chasing the Hollywood thing. I've been optioned several times. I've done the whole meet with executives and schmooze and talk to people, and then every time the project's died for some reason. And guys, when you're a writer, that is so normal. For every 100 things that get optioned, they make 1 or 2. That's the nature of the beast. Don't fret too much about Hollywood. So the fact that you were able to do it independently is really cool, and I think that's actually. And we're going to see a lot more of that in the future going forward as technology changes and people have more opportunities to create visually. I think we're going to see a lot more author and independent filmmaker crossover. We've talked about that on the show a little bit. We've talked to a few people who've been experimenting in that, and I think the future is going to be really interesting there. So
I think the technology is going to allow you to create essentially like entire movie scenes by yourself, like just with AI, if you really want to. Like certainly the better way of doing it is to get a bit of crowdfunding and like democratize the making of films. Like people can choose the things that they're personally interested in, fund it, and then get it made. But either way, it does open the doors for independent filmmakers. And I'd been in the same boat as you up until that point. I'd had books optioned before. And it's pretty clear, like, because they always promised the world, like, oh yeah, we're gonna do like a 5-movie series out of this, and you're gonna make hundreds of millions of dollars and be a household name. Like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Dude,
But
they're
yeah,
so squirrely. Never get your hopes up with Hollywood.
exactly. Like, I never believe anything until it's actually been made, because up until that point, it's all speculation. But it's a little ego boost when it happens. But we accomplished more with that short film that was crowdfunded than I ever did with all those deals with Hollywood bullshit artists. So yeah,
we're
I know
friends
which
with
way I'd rather
Jonathan
go.
Mayberry. I don't know if you know Jonathan Mayberry. He's a great writer, and he has his Joe Ledger series is kind of a really popular thriller, kind of supernatural, weird science thriller. And he has been through the ringer with Hollywood. I'm not joking, like 13 times, I think, at this point, where he will get an actor will become like a big fan and want to make the movie. And I don't know why. I mean, the poor guy has been through this at least a dozen times. I'm not even joking. And I've known him for probably 15 years. And it just keeps happening. And somebody will be excited and they'll approach him and they'll fly him out and they'll have the dinners and they'll meet with the actors and the producers, and then it won't happen.
There's so many things that have to like all line up in sequence for a movie to actually get made. And if any one of those things fails, the whole project stops. Like, that's the sad reality of it. It's the way the business works. And yeah, like you say, you just don't get your hopes up too much until it's actually the cameras are rolling and stuff's actually getting made.
The funniest one we know is a guy, I don't know if you've ever heard of an actor named or a writer named Dave Farland.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so fantasy writer, he wrote his Dave Farland. His real name was Dave Wolverton. His experience with trying to get a movie made consisted of the producer, and Steve's laughing. We've never gotten into this too much on the show because there's too many details. But the producer actually turned out to be basically a Chinese mafia guy.
Okay.
And so no matter how like bad our experience, like me and you with Hollywood has been, Dave's was worse.
It's like a serious version of Get Shorty. I mean,
it involved some serious criminal actors. It involved the kind of people who would be in a Ryan Drake novel.
Right. Okay. That's why you need an agent to vet this stuff so you don't get involved in it, because they can go bad real quickly.
Now that would have been if they actually made the movie, that would have been a great episode of Production Hell.
Oh yeah.
Can you believe it?
Oh man, yeah. It's we've been on for a while. Man, Drinker. Will, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, man. It has been awesome.
No, thank you, man. It took a while to get this set up, but I'm glad we were finally able to make it happen. And likewise, yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk to fellow authors. So thank you.
Yeah, and if you ever actually have any particular author topics you want to tackle, just let us know. We would be glad. We'd love to hit those with you.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
Yeah. No, sounds good, man. Thank you.
All right. We've kept you longer than we should, not longer than we wanted, but again, man, thanks so much. We appreciate you showing up and gabbing with us for nearly an hour. And look, this is the Writer Dojo, and we'll see you on the next one.
Writer Dojo is Steve Diamond and Larry Correia. Produced by Jack Wilder and Bear and Pear Studios. Theme song, Word Mercenaries by Craig Nybo. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can help support us by leaving a 5-star rating and review and by helping to spread the word. To advertise on the Writer Dojo, email ads@writerdojo.com. All questions and comments can be emailed to questions@writerdojo.com.
Nice.
We ramble for half of our episodes anyway.
Yeah, so. Poor producer, when he gets back from Tennessee, he's got to edit all this together.
He's like, I hate you all.
Yeah.